Absolutely. Here's Section I, A Civilization Lost, written with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section I, A Civilization Lost. The Delvarians were the kind of species humanity had dreamed of meeting when they first reached the stars, elegant, peaceful, wise in a way that didn't feel condescending. Their cities were built into the living architecture of their vast forests, their technology organically grown rather than manufactured. When Earth's diplomatic envoy first landed on Delvar Prime, the Delvarians welcomed them with open arms, long, silver-laced fingers outstretched in peace, and a deep melodic hum that resonated not in the ears, but in the soul. In the 5 years since contact, Earth had grown closer to the Delvarians than to any other interstellar civilization. Scientific collaboration flourished. Delvarian ecological engineering helped heal parts of Earth still scarred from past climate catastrophes. In turn, humans helped reinforce Delvar Prime's planetary defenses, though no one ever really believed they would need them. The ambassador to Delvar Prime, Anika Salas, was among the most respected diplomats Earth had ever produced. She lived among the Delvarians, learned their language, adopted their customs. In her last message home, she smiled before the transmission cut. "We're not just allies," she said. "We're family now." Then came the silence. At first, it was just a disruption in communications. A solar flare, a misaligned satellite. Nothing unusual. But the delay stretched from hours to days. Probes dispatched to check in found only static. Then the footage arrived. It came in fragments, salvaged by a merchant vessel that had passed too close to the event and barely made it out. The visuals were grainy but unmistakable. Thalshok dreadnoughts descending through the atmosphere, cities igniting like candles under industrial firestorms, bioluminescent forests scorched to blackened husks. And voices, screams in both Delvarian and English, broadcast across panicked emergency bands. Human scientists and diplomats tried to organize evacuation corridors. None succeeded. Delvar Prime burned. In the central hall of the United Earth Council, silence reigned. The video played on a loop above the circular table where Earth's leaders sat, stunned. Children's voices, crying for help. The sound of orbital bombardment, ceaseless. A final image. A young Delvarian child clutching the hand of a human aid worker. Both vaporized in a second as a beam of blue-white light consumed the screen. The silence broke when President Cale Thompson stood. "How many dead?" he asked, voice raw. "Initial estimates," the Secretary of Defense hesitated. 98% of Delvar Prime's population. "We lost all 17 of our people stationed there." 17, someone whispered. "That's it." "No," Cale said, his voice dark. "That's not it. That's the start." But Earth did not declare war. Not yet. The Galactic Council, a massive interstellar bureaucracy meant to prevent this very sort of atrocity, was convened in emergency session. Earth's ambassadors argued passionately. This was not just an attack. It was genocide. A crime against an entire species. Against their people, too. The Thalshok were unapologetic. They were an infestation, the Thalshok High Speaker said, their image projected into the Grand Chamber. "We claimed what was ours. They had no weapons capable of resisting you," Earth's ambassador shouted. "They were peaceful. Defenseless. All the easier," the Thalshok replied. The other members of the council, representatives of dozens of spacefaring civilizations, shifted uncomfortably. But none stood. No one condemned the Thalshok. Some looked away. Others simply remained silent. Earth was alone in its fury. Back on Earth, millions gathered in public squares to mourn. Candles, flowers, and Delvarian music played in vigil. News channels looped the child's scream from the final transmission. People wore Delvarian symbols in solidarity. School children learned Delvarian songs to honor the lost. But sorrow curdled into something colder. Stronger. Anger. Captain Elias Monroe, a veteran of Earth's Navy and the older brother of one of the killed humanitarian workers, sat alone in his quarters watching the footage for the 100th time. He didn't cry. He didn't curse. He stared, unmoving, until the screen flickered out. They killed my sister, he whispered. Not in a war. Not even in fear. They killed her because she cared. Across Earth, similar stories unfolded. Parents who lost children. Friends mourning friends. Scientists who had studied Delvarian medicine, now researching the physiology of the Thalshak. Something old stirred in humanity's collective memory, not the curiosity that pushed them into the stars, nor the idealism that formed the United Earth Alliance. This was older, primal, the part of humanity that had survived fire, plague, war, and ruin, the part that remembered how to fight back when no one else would. Earth did not scream. It did not lash out. It remembered, and in the darkness of the coming silence, it began to prepare. Let me know when you're ready for Section 2, or if you'd like to follow one of the characters introduced here more closely. Certainly. Here's Section 2, The Mask Drops, written with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 2, The Mask Drops. Humanity had always believed that civilization was defined by empathy. That progress meant rising above the instincts of revenge and rage. In the aftermath of the Delvarian genocide, Earth still clung, barely, to the fragile hope that justice could prevail through diplomacy, through law. The United Earth Council sent its best diplomats to the Galactic Council chambers. They presented the evidence. The footage. Survivor testimonies. Scans of the ravaged biosphere on Delvar Prime. Their demand was simple. The Thalshak must be held accountable. But the council chambers were filled not with outrage, but with silence. Is it true, Ambassador Riven of the Thalshak said coolly, that humans and Delvarians were sharing military information? Earth's ambassador Celine Rourke narrowed her eyes. We helped them reinforce their planetary shields. A defensive measure. You armed them, Riven replied, waving one telonered hand. You escalated. Ambassador Rourke slammed her fist on the podium. You exterminated them. Laughter, cold and metallic, came from the Thalshak delegation. It echoed around the hall, bouncing off the polished walls like a death knell. They were weak, Riven said. They occupied territory marked for Thalshak expansion centuries ago. We exercised our right. We cleansed what was ours. And the humans you murdered, she growled. A regrettable consequence, he replied with a sneer. But perhaps a lesson. The room fell still. Dozens of species, some who had traded with humans for decades, some who owed their technological leaps to Earth, said nothing. They looked away. Or worse, nodded silently. Earth had believed in unity. But unity, it seemed, was reserved for the powerful. And fear, not justice, ruled the stars. The council adjourned with no sanctions. No resolution. Not even an official condemnation. Ambassador Rourke stood in the lobby of the council afterward, her aide beside her, hands trembling. Did you see them? She whispered. Even the ones who cried after the attack, they just let it go. They're terrified, her aide said quietly. The Thalshak are too strong. They don't want to be next. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. The Galactic Council had refused to act. The murderers walked free, proud and unpunished. The fallout was immediate. Protests erupted across Earth and the colonies. Delvarian flags flew in city centers. Signs reading, "They were our family," "Never again" means something, and "No more silence" flooded the streets. But this time, the grief was not soft. It burned with purpose. In a classified meeting under Earth's defense headquarters, President Cale Thompson sat with military leaders, scientists, and intelligence directors. What do we do? Someone asked. The president turned to General Ortega, a grim-faced veteran who had watched the Delvarian footage without blinking. We prepare, Ortega said. No speeches. No more broadcasts. We go dark. And then we show them what humanity does when you kill our own. Project Cerberus was approved that night. A multi-pronged operation that abandoned conventional tactics. It involved artificial intelligence, black ops sleeper cells, experimental weaponry, and psychological warfare. Earth's military doctrine was rewritten, not for defense, not even for deterrence, but for inevitable retribution. No official declaration of war was made. Instead, Earth shut its doors. All diplomatic envoys were recalled. Communications ceased. Trade halted. Every outpost, embassy, and research station outside human-controlled space fell silent. The galaxy noticed. And in that silence, something ancient stirred. A new message appeared across all human broadcasts, short, cold, and final. Now we stop being civilized. The phrase spread like wildfire, not just among military channels but in art, music, and public discourse. It was stenciled on the sides of battleships, worn on jackets, whispered in hushed tones by those who had once preached pacifism. Across the stars, the Thalshok laughed at first. Let the humans sulk, Riven sneered to his subordinates. They are a sentimental species. All bark. No fangs. But their ships soon encountered something strange. The relay hub in Sector 9 went silent. A Thalshok supply line vanished en route to the outer colonies. Pirates found gutted dreadnoughts adrift in space. No signs of explosion. No survivors. No bodies. Other civilizations started to worry. Earth, once the most open and welcoming of species, had gone completely opaque. The few who tried to reach out were met with polite but final messages. Asterisk, do not approach. Earth is in mourning. Asterisk. In mourning, but not in retreat. Inside secret labs and orbital foundries, AI warships were being constructed, ships without crews, designed to think, adapt, and strike without hesitation. Elite units trained in stealth tactics vanished from their bases. Earth's top cybernetics division cracked alien languages, intercepted transmissions, and began hijacking Thalshok infrastructure. But it wasn't just military might. It was intent. Cold, focused, relentless intent. Humanity no longer saw itself as a participant in the galactic community. They saw themselves as its reckoning. At the edge of soul space, a new fleet assembled. Not the ceremonial parade of peacekeeping vessels, but the angular, silent predators of war. And unlike before, Earth didn't announce their departure. They simply disappeared into the void. The last recorded words from Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council echoed across the network before their departure. We offered peace. You answered with extinction. What comes next is on you. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. Earth's Wrath Unleashed. It's where things get very intense. Absolutely. Here's Section 3. Earth's Wrath Unleashed, with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 3. Earth's Wrath Unleashed. They called it the Season of Silence. Thalshok colonies began to vanish, one by one, and without warning. At first, it seemed like mere technical glitches. A failed communication relay. A solar storm. But when 3 colonies across different star systems went dark within a single week, the Thalshok began to understand. This was not an accident. This was war. Only humanity never declared one. The first evidence of Earth's retaliation came from a Thalshok military convoy patrolling the outer rim of their space. When they entered orbit around one of their outposts, they found the planet's surface scorched, not by bombs or orbital strikes, but by precision energy pulses that left the entire infrastructure intact, yet completely uninhabited. Every soldier, every technician, every civilian was gone. Not dead. Gone. A message was carved into the soil near the command center, deep and clean, as if etched by a planetary laser. We remember the Delvarians. There was no signature. No attempt to claim responsibility. But the message didn't need one. Humanity had arrived. The Thalshok military scrambled to mount a response. Patrols were doubled, codes changed, shields reinforced. But it didn't matter. Human forces weren't coming through the front door. They slipped in through shadows, through compromised systems, through dark matter tunnels that hadn't even been publicly mapped. One Thalshok dreadnought, an enormous warship capable of planetary siege, was found adrift near the gas giant Zaloran. Its engines had been surgically disabled, its bridge completely depressurized. Surveillance footage recovered from the black box showed nothing but a flicker of movement. Humanoid, cloaked in something beyond light-reflective camouflage. Then the lights died. The crew never had a chance to scream. For decades, humanity had been underestimated, seen as naive, too merciful, too obsessed with codes, treaties, and ideals. Now, the galaxy saw something else. Humanity unchained. They didn't just destroy infrastructure, they destabilized entire regions. Thelshock AI cores began malfunctioning. Coordinated fleets found themselves misaligned due to corrupted navigation systems. Strategic resources vanished in transit. Earth's cyber warfare operatives had infiltrated the Thelshock's very bones. No grand speeches were made. No heroes broadcast themselves across the stars. Humanity didn't need to declare war. They became the war. Among the operatives was Commander Elias Monroe, the soldier whose sister had died on Delvar Prime. He was a ghost now, no rank, no insignia, no recorded location. But his team, codename Ashfall, was feared among even Earth's own forces. They operated entirely off-grid, delivering surgical strikes with terrifying precision. Monroe didn't care about medals. He wanted to look every Thelshock commander in the eyes and show them what vengeance looked like when it carried the weight of an entire world. "We don't conquer," he told his team before one mission. "We don't rule. We remind them, if you murder innocents, you do not get to sleep again." Back in the Galactic Council, whispers spread. Footage smuggled out by desperate informants showed ruined Thelshock installations, gutted battleships, and eerie human drones, machine-bodied nightmares with no pilots and one directive: annihilate. Civilizations that had once mocked Earth now watched their borders carefully. Fear turned into awe. But there was something else in their eyes too: hope. Hope that perhaps someone would finally hold the monsters accountable. Earth's vengeance was not indiscriminate. Civilian targets were never touched. In fact, human forces frequently bypassed opportunities for total destruction in favor of dismantling supply chains, neutralizing military academies, and leaving entire battalions stranded, weaponless, and cold in deep space. The Thelshock responded the only way they knew how, with escalation. But their tactics, honed over centuries of fear and brute force, were now useless. Human stealth tech was generations ahead. Their AI swarms adapted faster than any biological force could match. And unlike the Thelshock, Earth soldiers fought with purpose, not just orders. Every mission was personal. Entire fleets were lost without a single human casualty. Black hole generators were deployed near Thelshock resource systems, not as weapons, but as warnings. No species had ever dared such a show of force without striking directly. It was a message. We could end you, but we want you to know what fear feels like first. The Thelshock High Command began to fracture. Paranoia spread. Accusations of betrayal. Executions. Civil unrest. One of their own admirals defected, seeking asylum with an Earth-aligned colony and revealing deep secrets of Thelshock military architecture. Earth's answer? They leaked the documents to the public galactic network. They didn't need secrecy. Let everyone know what the Thelshock had become and what humanity was now willing to do. As Earth's fleet cut deeper into Thelshock territory, they received a message. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea. We propose a ceasefire. Immediate negotiations. We accept responsibility for the actions taken on Delvar Prime. We ask for terms. Humanity responded with a single act. They detonated a miniature singularity at the edge of the Thelshock system, far enough to cause no deaths, but close enough to destabilize the solar wind for a decade. A voice followed, transmitted across all frequencies. This is not about reparations. It is not about apologies. It is about memory we remember, and you will never forget. Let me know when you're ready for Section 4. Asterisk, Peace Born of Fire. Asterisk, that's where the galaxy changes for good. Absolutely. Here's Section 4, Peace Born of Fire, written with a minimum of 700 words to close out the story. Hashtag Section 4, Peace Born of Fire. The Thelshock didn't surrender with dignity. They didn't even truly surrender. The last remnants of their empire simply collapsed beneath the weight of what Earth had become, a force that didn't seek conquest, didn't demand subjugation, but eradicated the foundation of impunity that the Thelshock had built their power upon. Their fleets fragmented. Their generals executed one another in desperate bids to survive. A dozen warlords rose from the ashes of their shattered chain of command, each promising they could hold the line. None of them could. Earth never invaded their core worlds. That was never the plan. What they did was far more terrifying. They unmade the myth of Thalshock invincibility. One by one, planets that had cowered under Thalshock rule rose up, with weapons mysteriously delivered by anonymous freighters, with tactical plans slipped into their encrypted comms, with whispers of hope spoken in human voices over dead frequencies. Resistance, once thought suicidal, now had a shadow behind it, a vengeful, calculating shadow. The galaxy watched with bated breath. When the last Thalshock High Speaker tried to flee to neutral space, a message was delivered to the station where he docked. "You are not safe. You will never be safe." He was found 2 days later, not dead, but locked in a containment pod orbiting a dead moon, left to drift alone in silence, endlessly replaying the footage of the Delvarian genocide. A note was etched inside the pod. Asterisk, may you remember them forever. Asterisk. The galaxy changed. For the first time in a generation, the Galactic Council convened under new terms. This time, not led by the elder races who had once looked down on humanity, but with Earth at the table, not as a supplicant, but as a symbol. A reckoning had occurred. Not one born of greed or hunger for territory, but one carved from the bones of betrayal. Earth had asked the galaxy to care. The galaxy had turned away. Now the galaxy had learned what came of silence. In the Council's new chambers, it was not the banners of peace that adorned the walls, but memorials, names of the Delvarian dead, burned into the structure itself with Delvarian crystal and human alloy. They could not be erased. Not now. Not ever. President Cale Thompson stood before the delegates, older now, his hair touched by gray, but his voice resolute. "We didn't want this war," he said, "but we will not apologize for it." Silence. We were told to wait, told to let the system work. But when justice becomes optional and peace is only offered to the powerful, then we must ask, what does civilization mean? The silence deepened. It means nothing unless we make it mean something. And with that, Earth did something no one expected. They withdrew. Not from the Council, but from retaliation. No worlds annexed. No war reparations demanded. No new territories claimed. Instead, Earth proposed something radical. The Delvar Accord, a universal doctrine requiring immediate unified military response to any genocidal aggression, codified with human enforcement oversight. It passed unanimously, because no one dared oppose Earth again. The Accord became law, enforced not by a single race, but by a coalition of species who had risen from fear to finally act. Earth's fleets remained neutral, stationed only near memorial worlds, places like Delvar Prime, now marked as sacred space, restored slowly by human terraforming engineers. It would never be what it once was. But the forests began to grow again. And on the first day of remembrance, a Delvarian melody, preserved in human memory, played across the stars. Humanity didn't celebrate their victory with fireworks or parades. They stood in silence, their eyes turned outward, remembering. Commander Elias Monroe, now a recluse tending the memorial gardens on a small Terran outpost, was asked by a young recruit if he was proud of what they had done. He looked up at the night sky and shook his head slowly. "I'm not proud," he said. "I'm awake. And I'll stay awake as long as they remember what we did, and why we did it." Earth had shown the galaxy something it would never forget. Kindness is not weakness. Mercy is not cowardice. But when those virtues are abused, when innocence is slaughtered and justice denied, then even the most peaceful species can become something else. Something unstoppable. So, the stars spun on. The Council reformed. Alliances shifted. And Earth became not an empire, but a standard. A warning. A promise. In time, the phrase once spoken in mourning became law, legend, and oath. Now we stopped being civilized. But quietly, beneath the fire and ash, the real meaning lived on. We were civilized once, and we can be again. But only if you never make us choose. Asterisk, asterisk. Let me know if you'd like the full story formatted or revised for publication. I'd be happy to help with titles, a cover blurb, or even a preface.